Hi everyone and welcome to This Is Why We Fight. I'm Jo.
And I'm Jordan.
Good evening. It's another episode of Tuesday Tyranny and we're going to be looking now at the prolonged effects of the tyranny. We've pretty much covered what it means to be surveilled, compelled, manipulated, propagandized. It doesn't really...
Spied on.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter how many groups there are out there doing it. We know that there are groups out there doing it. Listing them all isn't going to really help us. Now that we're aware that this is going on, now that we're aware that this is, to them at least, a game, we are the guinea pigs in this game, and they do not see us as fellow human beings at all. We're just lab rats to them. We mean nothing. Our lives mean nothing. It's now time to move on to what they're actually doing with these processes and how they are manipulating us to this day. So in light of that, we thought there's no better time than to cover the great leader Boris's lockdown, end of lockdown announcement. And let's see what Boris has to say. See what Boris truly thinks of us, shall we? So... let's have a look. Okay, so PM urges people to live responsibly with COVID as England's lockdown eases. There's so much in that, just in that headline.
Surely we were living responsibly in the first place.
Apparently not. Suddenly they trust us to do the right thing, but they didn't before. Why is that?
I've just noticed as well, actually. Full disclaimer, we've only just come across this article. We haven't actually read through it. PM urges people to live responsibly with COVID. Basically setting the stage for COVID being here permanently.
Oh, well, yes, because COVID is essentially, it's a coronavirus and it's a virus and it's they're always going to fade away and resurge and fade away and resurge. That's what the flu is. Yeah, you're right. I misread that. He's not even talking about... doesn't even care if we're responsible adults. Just be responsible with COVID.
Exactly. Just be responsible with COVID. That's it. That's all you need to do. Don't worry about getting into massive amounts of debt for my banker buddies. All is good.
No, come on. That's not fair. Not all of them made a fortune from this.
That's true. Some of them would have made a loss.
Well, it's interesting though, isn't it? It's basically saying... you will all have now, whether you like it or not, a relationship with COVID. It is a part of your life.
I want to break up. How can I do this?
I want to drop kick COVID out the door. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, this is what they're basically saying. COVID is here to stay. You now have to just live with it. Anyway, look at him, gormless.
Don't be rude.
Get off! Come on. Look at the flags.
I've noticed he's back to being more Boris-like recently.
Yeah.
Like in terms of the hair, a little bit more unkempt.
Because he's an actor playing a part, and he's adjusted his role to the situation, and now he's back to being the crazy professor, like the nutty professor. Anyway, let's see.
There's something odd going on with his tie as well.
Odd how?
I don't know, it's not straight, like in any direction. It's also kind of, it's off to his right a little bit.
It does look like it's got angles on it.
Yeah, then it's also not straight to his chest. It looks like it's turned in a little bit.
Yeah, well, he probably recorded this like last January, and he was probably rushing, so, you know.
Allegedly.
I did say probably. PM Boris Johnson warns the public not to throw caution to the wind. Let's see what he really means, shall we? People in England will be allowed to hug their loved ones and enjoy indoor hospitality from next Monday. From next Monday!
Look, all I know is if you hug somebody on Sunday, they will explode.
Allowed to hug. Allowed. Like you have permission from the almighty Boris to touch a member of your family again in a nice, affectionate way because they have consented. It's ridiculous. Are you enjoying your slavery yet, everyone? The PM has said, whilst urging the public to exercise caution and common sense, not like most of your politicians have. We've seen them.
This is what we was always doing.
No,
basically, what you said is carry on how you were, but still act as if this is going around.
Yeah, but they couldn't allow us to just do that before, because then nobody would have bought into the lockdowns or anything. If the government had said to everyone back in January of last year, so we know that you're all responsible people, and we know that you care deeply for the most vulnerable people in your families. And we know that you're going to do what's best for them and be cautious and careful and, not risk them getting infected and not just take, silly risks at all. But would you mind very much if we just imposed a national lockdown and locked you all in your homes? Borders will stay open, but you have to stay in your homes, and you can only shop when we say you can shop, and you can only go to the park when we say you can, and we're not ever going to promote fresh air and exercise, because that would really help, wouldn't it? And you can only walk your pets.
No. Be fair to them. After a couple of months, they did come up with hands, face, space, replace.
Whatever. And basically, so all of this stuff is just voluntary. And even though you're going to do the right thing, will you go along with it? Of course, everyone's going to say, hell no. And the interesting thing is that the government didn't trust us to do the right thing. Like we trust them? Like, how dare they bring up issues of trust with us?
Do we trust them to do anything?
Well, I don't trust them to protect this country from invasion. I don't trust them to, I don't know, keep the roads drivable.
Here's a question. What do you think the average member of the public trusts the government to do?
Trust them to do?
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's going to fall back on healthcare and welfare, I would
imagine. Do you think they trust them to do that? Or do you think they just accept that these are the people doing it and that's the end of it?
I don't know. I mean, the last time we trusted Boris was to deliver Brexit, wasn't it? And that didn't go so well.
Get Brexit done.
I think for your average person, it depends which way they are inclined. If they are politically withdrawn and they don't really follow the ins and outs of what governments get up to, they probably, on the face of it, do trust them to do certain things. I can't think of a single thing I trust the government to do and do well. I trust them to fleece the taxpayer.
They're really good at collecting their taxes. I'll grant them that. Like, if you've got a debt to settle, I trust the government to deal with it.
I trust them to go into like mega surveillance. I trust them to police our thoughts and opinions and our freedom. Do I trust them to do anything that's actually beneficial to us? I cannot think of a single thing as an adult that any government has done that has personally benefited me, that didn't already exist. There has not been any legislation, for instance, that has been created or brought into law, as far as I'm aware as an adult, that has personally benefited me and my lot in life. Can you think of anything?
No, not at all.
Like literally nothing. Even Brexit is not the Brexit that, we either stay in the EU or we leave the EU entirely. Even that didn't happen. So anyway, let's carry on with this. Boris Johnson said it was the single biggest step in relaxing restrictions and people should use good judgment. Indoor mixing and overnight stays in groups of up to 6 people or 2 households will also resume.
Yay! And you'll be glad to know that you can go out in your little groups to cinemas, museums, children's play areas as well.
I think cinemas are dead, honestly. There's only the truly indoctrinated sheep now will keep, holding up the kind of movie industry, surely. After that awful Imagine farce that went on. Do you remember right at the start of the lockdowns?
I forgot about that. Oh, that was awful.
Bunch of rich people.
I think we mocked it at the time, didn't we?
I'm sure we did. I know many people did. Like a bunch of rich, entitled idiots in their mansions complaining about how depressed they were.
That was heinous.
It was. And plus, none of them could sing. And they were all out of tune. I mean, you'd think with the access to contacts they've got between them, they could tune it. Like, couldn't they borrow Cher's tuning equipment or something?
But what you don't understand is that's the point, is to make them more relatable. Because this is what they're doing from their homes. You could be just like...
Do you think any of these millionaires or billionaires or whoever took part in it, because I can't actually remember who it was now, probably everyone I hate, but can you imagine any of these people do not have months and months of food stocked?
Oh, absolutely not. I always find it funny as well when you go to these people and they're delivering an interview over a webcam which has come straight out of 1997. Like, you're worth how many millions of pounds and you're still using this antiquated potato?
I've always had this thought that rich people stay rich because they are frugal, like really frugal. They do not waste money on stuff, on like paraphernalia. You know, like
yeah, but not when it comes to pop stars and singers and things like that.
No, but I suppose that they've never needed to do this thing from home before, have they?
So come on.
What?
They're not. No, they're going out of their way with the webcams, the potato webcams that some of them have.
Oh, I'm not defending them. They clearly did it to make them seem like just like you and I.
They're normal people with their awful internet.
Yeah, they're not normal. They're all part of this Hollywood cabal anyway. They're all, well, I won't even get onto that. That's a whole nother episode. Let's just say that these people have morality issues. That's all I'm going to say. Right, moving on. Speaking in Downing Street alongside England's Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, again.
Oh, the bug man.
And the UK government's Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance. Mr Johnson said the further relaxation of England's lockdown will go ahead on 17th of May as the government had met its 4 tests for easing restrictions. The government had met its tests. You've ignored all the suicides, though, haven't you? With your stupid Chief Medical Officer and your Chief Scientific Advisor. When are you going to talk about all the suicides you've caused? Oh, that was a ding. It's the police. It's the police. It's the police telling me to shut up. I'm joking. Yeah, it's 4 tests. We literally do not count in this equation, and I really want you to understand this. Our lives are at risk, and our lives were at risk, and they will continue being at risk, but we don't count. The government is talking about its tests.
But when you look at the tests as well, they're in the next paragraph. These tests relied on the success of the vaccine rollout, evidence that jabs were reducing serious illness and death, infection rates remaining under control, and the risk from new COVID variants not changing. All things considering, whenever you pop onto the BBC, The Guardian, The Times, blah, 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 any of the mainstream media, at the moment they're flooding the news with stuff from India. And there's all these politicians there saying, oh, this thing from India might come to this country.
This thing. Yeah, we were talking about this actually, weren't we? And we know a lot of people had forgotten, and we also know a lot of people had remembered that, I think it was in January, possibly February of last year, we were seeing lots and lots of videos allegedly coming from Wuhan with doctors allegedly wearing full hazmat gear, picking up people who are allegedly falling in the street. That was the COVID we were sold. That was the worst case scenario, that people would just drop dead in the street or they would pass out in the street, and that men in hazmat suits would have to come and take the body in a white van to the nearest hospital. That's COVID we were sold.
Also, don't forget they were going out there and spraying the streets with that weird smoke.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so over the top.
I haven't seen that anywhere else apart from in India recently.
Well, the India thing with the funeral pyres, I mean, not to be morbid, but you couldn't see any detail. And you don't know where this footage is taken from. They have proven again and again, the media, that they will take footage from literally anywhere and pass it off as something currently happening.
It must also be said that that's their culture. That's what they do. Look,
I mean,
the actual the burning of bodies in that way is what they do. That's their thing, and fair enough.
Well, I was going to say, even if they were real, we don't know why these people died. I mean, maybe these are the people who killed themselves because of the extreme tyranny inflicted on citizens worldwide. Maybe these were people who were literally frightened to death, the vulnerable, the old, and by the media onslaught.
We just have to remember as well, when it comes to India, right at the start of this, they put in that incredibly draconian lockdown where you weren't allowed outside of your home and people were given a couple of hours' notice. These are some stressed out people at this stage, or
Exactly.
at least some of them certainly could be. And then who knows how much debt people got themselves into during that period.
Plus, you also have to look at their population and their levels of sanitation and hygiene. I mean, this is not a country, unfortunately, that has an across-the-board level of good, safe, hygienic living. They've always had a lot of deaths, and this is always how they've dealt with them. So, yeah, this is just more propaganda. So, yes.
Also have to take into account as well that, once again, this is halfway around the world. We have no realistic way of verifying any of this.
And plus,
all we can do is speak to friends and family that we have in these nations and see what they're saying. The problem then is, just like has been proven time and time again during criminal trials where eyewitness testimony isn't terribly accurate, you've got that playing out because now people are in these situations and they don't want to tell their loved ones far away or their friends, whoever far away, that no, everything is fine or that everything is awful. They're going to go with roughly what the narrative is when talking to that person, partly because they either don't want them to worry or just because it's easier.
Well, I would say, I can't actually remember what my point was, but never mind. Moving on. The Prime Minister said the latest data showed deaths and hospitalisations had dropped to the lowest level since last July. Convenient. 0 coronavirus deaths were announced in England, Scotland, Northern Ireland on Monday, while Wales recorded 4 deaths. More than 2/3 of adults across the UK have now received a coronavirus vaccine. He added, with almost 18 million people having had their second dose. There's a lot to talk about with these figures. They're still basing the figures approximately on a 4 million people increase since the last census. Now, nobody knows how many people are in the UK, including the government. They've admitted as such. 4 million well, that would be coming up for 11 years. 4 million? Because the 2011 census would have been taken in 2010. Yes?
No, it was taken in 2011.
I thought it was taken the year before, so they could collate all the information.
Yeah, but if I remember rightly, they still call it that year. They just release the information the next year.
Oh, so the information would have been released in 2012?
Yes.
Right, gotcha. Okay, still we're looking at 10 years. 10 years and 4 million people. Now, given the dinghy invasions that we've had consistently for just the last 2 years, plus the people arriving, well, all this time the country was locked down, the airports and the borders were open. I do not believe them. But we can't prove this either way because nobody actually has the real figures. Well, I'm sure someone does, but they're not telling us, are they? So, anyway, the UK's 4 chief medical officers said earlier that the UK's COVID alert level should be lowered from level 4 to 3. That's another interesting one, isn't it? Because of something else that happened last January. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, just before they put the country into lockdown, they decided to lower the threat level from COVID from serious to...
Moderate.
That was it. I was trying to remember what it was called. I'm glad you interrupted because I was going with mild.
Well, same thing really, but yeah. So that's rather interesting that they deemed it not to be a threat just before they locked down the country. you have to wonder at their motivation for locking us down, despite that.
The good news is transmission is no longer high or rising exponentially. Yay.
So restrictions can be gradually reduced. See, this word restrictions, this is literally a parent deciding what a child can do and when it can do it. This is just amazing. Anyway.
What they should say, if they're being more honest, is basic human rights are going to be granted back.
Yeah.
You're going to be allowed to do what you've always been able to do, but recently the government has decided you're not allowed to do. This is the difference between a human right and things that we just like to have. For some reason, a lot of people seem to think that things like healthcare is a human right, even though you're taking up another individual's time and education and all the rest of that in order to get it. You know, it's a basic human right to leave your front door. That goes without saying, really. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a grey area, but essentially a right is something you can do that impacts no one else, and a privilege is something you can do that impacts other people.
It's not a grey area, really. It's quite.
Well, it is. I'm sure we can find examples that go against the grain there, but generally that's what I consider to be the difference between a right and a privilege. Like the right to be free, to be truly free to make your own decisions. Is one of those grey areas, I think, insofar as what if I decide that I want to kill someone?
Yeah, but then you're infringing on somebody else's right to be safe.
Exactly. So then it's not a right. I don't have the right to do anything I want. Oh, that's another discussion. A very interesting one, I feel. Let's finish up with this anyway. So what is changing in England? I don't know why I'm slurring.
I don't know. That was a bit weird.
I'm drinking coffee, I promise.
Do you need some oil or something? Is the robot Joe broke? What is changing in England on 17th of May? Why is it they don't say 17th of May, it's 17 May?
I don't know. It's weird.
This is a recent thing, I feel.
I'm going to agree with you. I don't recall this being a standard thing at all. I don't know when this started, but it's not what I'm used to. Maybe the letters T and H have offended someone and therefore they've been abolished.
I thought they liked T and H.
Who knows?
They're a big fan of the there and they thing.
Well, what do you mean pronouns?
Yeah.
Maybe they've used up all the T's and H's on the pronouns. And therefore, there's none left for the dates. That must be the answer. Save it for the pronouns, bigot. Anyway, right.
People can meet in groups of up to 30 outdoors. Heck yeah, that's a large barbecue.
6 people or 2 households can meet indoors. Oh, how kind of you to let us do this. Your turn.
No, I was trying to think of a joke for the 6 people and 2 households meeting indoors. I can't get there. Overnight stays will be allowed in groups of up to 6 people or 2 households. Is that not the same as the above?
And again, will be allowed. By whose authority do you get to dictate who we spend time with? Oh, whatever.
Is that not the same as the above? Overnight stays will be allowed.
Well, no, because one is meeting indoors and one's staying overnight. It's essentially the same. They've just added 2 words.
You don't? I don't like it.
I don't like it. This is the usual fantastic journalism we've come to love and admire. Pubs, restaurants and other hospitality venues can reopen indoors.
Yay. How do you reckon the restaurant trade is going?
I think restaurants have had a tough time of it. I think they've also been lucky insofar as I do believe many of them have gone down the takeaway route. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many, and I don't know how many have been able to, but they have had another way to deliver their goods to the public. Although many restaurants, I would imagine, at least smaller businesses, would have only had a website to promote their business and not a full menu. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure how they would have coped with online orders, for instance. Maybe that would have been over the phone. I'm not quite sure how they cope with that. But again, nobody cared, did they? Nobody cared about you little businesses. Just, this is how it's going to be, and it's tough if you can't cope. So I feel terribly sorry, especially for the smaller ones.
I have a very strong, sneaky feeling that restaurants are going to get absolutely obliterated over the coming months. There's going to be an initial boom of people going out, but after that, can't see it.
I think in the future they are going to suffer because I'm sorry about this, restaurants, but people have come to appreciate, I think, home cooking a lot more because they've been forced to stay at home. They've come to appreciate the amount of money they waste on things they don't need.
Mm-hmm.
They've come to appreciate the amount of poison and rubbish that's in the food that they are sold. I'm not calling out any particular restaurant for this.
McDonald's!
I know, no, come on, we can't, in fairness, we can't call out one or any because we don't have the evidence to support that.
Fair, allegedly.
Allegedly. So we don't know about your practices of storing food. We don't know about your practices of serving food. Are you cooking it properly?
I don't think that bothers people, honestly. I just think the base reality is sooner rather than later the penny's going to drop with a lot of people that things are slightly different.
Well, it's going to hit them it from an economic perspective as well. It's not just about doing what's best for your family. It's not just about having better quality of life. It's about also really money. And the one thing that has been noticeable during this whole lockdown fiasco has been that the rich are getting richer and the poor are being
Squeezed.
Again. So many people furloughed. Those who weren't furloughed for whatever reason either had their hours cut, were put on 0-hour contracts, which have been abolished, by the way, but apparently not, or they've just lost their jobs. We know that a lot of big companies, Tesco, for instance, and I can call this out because there's evidence for it, have let a lot of people go and rehired them on, guess what, lower wages and worse working conditions. So, yeah, a lot of people have taken advantage of this. Again, though, I do feel for these small businesses, I hope very much they can adapt and find another way to utilise their talents. I genuinely do. Maybe
I do and all.
Maybe those people with skills in food can start doing door-to-door deliveries, or, maybe focusing on the kind of demographic that would be the vulnerable, people who can't get out, people who aren't mobile. Working with homeless shelters, or I don't know, something. I'm sure there's something, and I hope that they're able to adapt.
As do I. I just worry about the long-term effects of the economy and inflation and things like that.
Well, I think given the government...
So you're very touchy-feely when it comes to these things. I'm much more factual. We've just taken on an ungodly amount of debt. We're going to struggle to pay that off.
Yeah, but
There's going to be a lot of inflation.
I don't care about the national debt. I care about people who have invested their entire lives into running a business that the government have just literally destroyed with a stroke of a pen.
I understand that, but I'm talking about the average person who's trying to... Their customer, basically. That's what I'm on about. I just don't think the customer base is going to be as strong.
No, I don't think it will. This is why people will need to adapt. They'll need to branch out into other areas. But the reality is, I think everything is going to change. I mean, the government keep talking about the new normal. I think that those of us who are still able to control our own thoughts, will start to create our own new normal, because we obviously can't go back to how things were, and we definitely won't accept how things are.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a pivotal time in our history where we can work together to improve things for all of us, or we can carry on our selfish, isolated ways and just look after ourselves at the expense of others. I really hope people choose the first option, and I really hope it makes a lot of people see that community is everything. How many of these businesses would have survived had they been part of a thriving community? I imagine a lot more than did. Anyway, adult indoor group sports and exercise classes can restart. So they can restart, but you can only have 6 people or 2 households indoors.
Well, I was just about to point that out again. When it comes to the performances and large events, can we start with limits on audience numbers? Would that limit be 30 or would it be above 30?
Well, I think if large venues can only have 30 people, then that's fair.
Wait a minute. Remaining outdoor entertainment, such as outdoor theatres and cinemas, can open. But why isn't that covered by the previous thing? Performances and large events.
If it's remaining outdoor entertainment, does that mean it's been open all the time? So why even bother to mention it?
No, I think in this regard, remaining outdoor entertainment basically means everything that wasn't covered by one of the previous things. But it's still a bit weird.
Outdoor theatres and cinemas. How many outdoor theatres and cinemas do we have?
I have no idea.
Children's...
there was an outdoor theatre at Canary Wharf, actually.
No. Children's play areas can reopen. I'm guessing, though, again, they'll cap the number at 30 because 30 is the rule for us plebs, right?
Would that be 30 children or 30 children plus parents?
It would have to be 30 in total of everyone who is there. Otherwise, this is a two-tier system and therefore it's unfair. Or maybe they could just have two households. I'm trying to think if there are any families that have 15 children. I'm sure there are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So there you go. Right, so what else have we got?
Oh, bloody hell, there's more.
Hotels, hostels and B&Bs can reopen. Can reopen! What, reopen to the paying public?
Hey, they've been open to the migrants.
Or do you mean reopen to the dinghy invaders who we've had to pay for whether we like it or not? I'm so tired of this. Hotels, hostels and B&Bs can reopen, okay. Holidays abroad to green list countries are allowed. Remember what you'll have to do, of course, in order to partake of these holidays. I hope you've got your passports ready. And
You're going to have to have your test, you're going to have to have your mask and your gloves and various other bits and bobs to get on the aeroplane.
And I don't mean your regular passports. Up to 30 people can attend weddings and more than 30 can attend funerals. Hang on a minute. COVID doesn't attack funerals then.
What?
So, this is very interesting. In some kind of morbid way, you could argue there with that sentence they're saying we should be celebrating death more than life.
Which is kind of what this entire charade has been about.
Why would you have more people attend a funeral than a wedding? I mean, for instance, you would take children to a wedding, would you not? If you happen to have children and you're invited.
Yeah, you wouldn't take children to a bloody funeral.
And not young children, there's no need. Anyway, there you go. So they want loads and loads of people to go to funerals, just to really drive it home that people were dying. And only 30 can go to a wedding. I'm assuming that includes the bride and groom, unless one of those is not allowed. Who knows? In the crazy mixed up world we live in now. Mr. Johnson said that all the data supported the latest easing of restrictions. The data. I trust the data. Which he said amounted to a considerable step on the road back to normality. There is no normality. This is their normal. Don't be fooled. This is the biggest psyop ever, because what they're going to do is they're going to give us back some level of freedom. I don't know what they're going to do with the passports. I'm not going to make I'm not going to be a prophet now, and I'm not going to make any kind of I can't think of the word. What's the word? Yeah, prophecy. That will do. But I am going to say this. They're either going to bring in another lockdown because there will be some kind of issue with another variant, or the cases will rise again, or it doesn't matter, because guess what? They deliver the data, they control the data, they can manipulate the data. Whatever they say.
It'll obviously be the Indian variant.
Well, they're setting us up for that, aren't they? And the Indian variant, of course, will come to the UK because we never closed our borders. And even though India is one of those red countries, I believe, well, you can't travel to the UK from India, except you can, as long as you have the right to remain or a passport. Well, they hand those out like sweets anyway to all and sundry, so you may as well just say that the borders are open. Business as usual. Do you want to quote Boris here?
And today we're taking steps towards that moment where we learn to live responsibly with COVID. When we ease eventually to lie, when we cease rather.
Oh, now you're stumbling around.
Yeah, well, that's my normal thing. When we cease eventually to rely on detailed government edicts and make our own decisions based on the best scientific advice about how best to protect our families and those around us.
Oh my God.
What the hell?
Oh
when
my
we
God.
Cease eventually to rely on detailed government edicts. We're not relying on you. We're being forced into it. Detailed government edicts.
You mean tyrannical diktats, Boris, if you're going to play with words. And yes, we haven't relied on you. You forced us to stay in our homes, to wear masks, to go into certain establishments.
And make our own decisions. This is what people have been pushing for. And this is what we will continue to push for. Just, we want to be left alone by you crazies. That's it.
They're mental, all of them.
Their ego is so enormous.
Just leave us alone. Just allow us to make the best decisions for our own family, because we care about them more than you ever will. And stop interfering with our lives. That's what you can do for us. Stop interfering.
He added that as part of the latest lockdown easing, the government would update its guidance on close contact between close family and friends shortly. Even though in the previous sentence he just said, make our own decisions based on best scientific evidence.
Well, that's obviously make decisions, make your own decisions based on the best evidence or best advice.
Which we give you.
As long as we agree with it, as long as we allow it. That's amazing. The advice will explain the risks involved so people could make informed choices, he said. We have never had choices. You took them from us. This doesn't mean that we can suddenly throw caution to the winds. We all know that close contact, such as hugging, is a direct way of transmitting this disease, the Prime Minister said. No, we don't all know this. We know that you have told us this.
Edicts.
We don't all know this. In fact, we, the public, know very little. Because you are controlling the information. So here's the rub. Are you ready? This is it. So I urge you to think about the vulnerability of your loved ones. We have been thinking about them, unlike you.
The PM added that whatever you decide, I must ask you to continue to follow social distancing when not with friends and family, including in workplaces, shops, pubs, restaurants, and other settings.
I have to say, when you first read that, I thought he was saying follow social distancing when you're alone.
Yes.
And I thought that makes as much sense as anything else we've read, right?
Remain 6 feet apart from yourself.
Yes. Well,
it sounds like some sort of Freudian nightmare. You know, keep your ego 6 foot away from everything else.
I wish they'd keep their egos 6 foot away from everything else. So yes.
This article is just about done there.
Yeah, so basically, after everything he said, he still wants you to follow their rules and do as they say.
It is very pleasant that he did acknowledge
that nobody wants to do those things.
Yeah, that these are government edicts. A little sad that he thinks we're relying on them, but you know.
Well, some people are.
Oh, true.
But edicts, such a soft word for what they've done over the last 14 months, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
When you've had COVID wombles, what were they called? Yeah, COVID wombles, and essentially jumped up traffic wardens, bursting into people's homes and taking them by force to be arrested for the crime of what? Hugging their parents. It's
There's
just...
that one geezer who was in his own home by himself.
Oh, yeah, they burst in there because they thought he was having a party. Wasn't he playing some music and dancing or singing?
Yeah.
Yeah, they just... You know, we should start calling them what they are, the no fun police. Fun is banned. There you go. That's no longer allowed. But genuinely, these very soft sort of patterns of language that they use for something that has been so tyrannical never before seen in our history. We've been through wars, and we have never had this level of lockdown. I mean, what's the worst we had during World War II? When the air raid sirens would go off. So we had curfews, didn't we? You still there?
Yes. So I thought it was a rhetorical question.
No, I was actually saying to you. So we had curfews,
yes.
didn't we?
Yes, we did. Sorry, I thought it was rhetorical, yes.
But we still had children playing on sort of bombed out ruins.
We still got on with life just like as normal.
Milkmen still delivered the milk, didn't they?
The only thing was, come like darkness, you put your blackout curtains up and you didn't go outside. A relatively reasonable thing considering you were getting bombed.
Exactly.
Mildly different.
It's not like you had to rely on someone else providing information. This was a physical thing that you could see and hear.
You could see it, for Christ's sake.
You didn't have to.
It weren't difficult.
Exactly. You didn't have to be convinced that people were being bombed out of their homes because you could just look up the street and see a bombed out house. These things existed in reality. So yes, when you were asked to, black out, to cover all your lights and put blackout curtains up, it was a reasonable request. Because you could see the reason why the request was being made, and you'd have to be a nutter to disagree with it. And yet, here we are being told to do all these things that are absolutely harmful on the basis of information provided by one source and with no evidence to back it up. And yet, should anyone go against the official narrative, they constantly call out this, I don't know what it was, debunked it. This is debunked evidence, or this debunked rumours or something. What was that phrasing they used? That they keep repeating over and over again.
Debunked misinformation.
Yeah, but they're saying they debunked it. Well, where have you debunked it? Well, I'd like to see that.
We've said before, it's what they do so wonderfully well. They just say it's debunked, and then that's it.
It's debunked because we say it's debunked.
Exactly. I don't even have to give this the time of day to explain why. It's debunked, end of, moving on.
That's like a childish argument. Well, you say something, I say, no, you're wrong. You say, prove it. I say, well, you're wrong because I say you're wrong. That's it. I win.
This has been debunked by scientists.
The same scientists. Well, let's not even go there. Okay, so let's have a look. Where do we get to? Play areas.
Confirmed after changes that will come in from next Monday, including the reopening, blah, 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 blah. This is the same. This is an incredibly poorly written article.
Top-notch journalism. I will go down to this part. Mr. Johnson also confirmed that the wearing of face masks in secondary school classrooms in England will not be required after 17th of May. Not be required. Why are you masking your children, muzzling them like animals? Why?
Why are they not required in secondary school yet are in primary?
Why are they not required after the 17th of May?
Yeah, what happened on the 15th?
What about on the 16th after midnight, like the Gremlins? Can you feed your child after midnight, or does that count? What if you feed your child at 5 in the evening the day before? That's after midnight the day before that.
They might explode.
This is ridiculous. These are arbitrary rules with arbitrary details. And if you follow these, then you have already given up any freedom or agency that you ever had. If you were muzzling...
But there is a problem, Joe.
What?
They're edicts, remember?
Oh, whatever. They're diktats. If you are muzzling your children like animals to send them to school to be brainwashed, then you've already given up. And not only that, you're inflicting this on your children. The harm this is doing to children who have had no physical contact, especially young, very young children, who have grown up in a world where they've never seen someone's mouth out in the street. They can't see people's expressions. And you bundle your child away from strangers like they've literally got the lurgy. These children are going to be stressed, depressed, and traumatised by
malformed.
Yeah, of course. And they're going to be suspicious of everyone. This amount of continuous stress is unhealthy for anyone, no matter how well adjusted you are. Nobody can maintain this. And still they do not speak about the kind of help people are going to need. Those who have lost people to suicide, those who have had some kind of mental break. And still no mention, they talk about the businesses reopening. Where's the mention of the businesses that have shut permanently? Because they tried to reopen at Christmas, do you remember? And they said there wouldn't be another lockdown, and then they changed their minds. How much stock do you think these people brought in to their shops and restaurants just to have to throw it all away again? Disgusting.
It's interesting they haven't released any numbers on that.
Well, they never will. They never will, because that blood is on their hands and they know it, and they know that we know it. Care home residents will be able to have up to 5 named visitors, he said, and greater freedoms to enjoy low-risk visits outside their home without having to isolate on their return. Again, arbitrary. They have had these people locked in homes, unable to have any physical contact with their own family for 14 months. These people have been so stressed and depressed. And they've been stuck in homes with strangers, locked in, locked down, with strangers. For anyone complaining about lockdowns, at least you've been with family or friends. These people have been with strangers. And we all know what can happen in care homes. We've seen evidence of it. Just disgusting. I'm disgusted with a lot of them. And then we've got analysis by Nick Triggle. That name, though.
It is a great name.
Okay, we'll quickly go through this. So this is a BBC health correspondent. This should be interesting. Let's see if he calls any of this out. This next unlocking is, as the Prime Minister and his scientists stressed, the most significant step yet. Indoors is, after all, where transmission is most likely to take place. Then why have you prevented us from going outdoors? Which explains why quite a sober tone accompanied the confirmation that restrictions would lift. Why have they prevented us from going outdoors if indoors is the worst place to be? That was also not a rhetorical question. Are you with us?
So I'm making tea, love.
Brilliant.
Well,
I'll keep reading. You carry on. It means vaccines are going to have to do most of the work in terms of controlling infection levels. During the winter, it has been lockdown and social distancing that has played a key role in getting cases down. The good news is that all the evidence is pointing to the vaccines being incredibly effective. It means the threat of the NHS being overwhelmed and lockdowns reimposed has gone, unless a new variant comes along that can evade the vaccines in a significant way. Considered unlikely by most experts, well, thank God for that. But cases could still creep up and there could be local outbreaks that need intervening on. Where did you learn to write? It's why the key message is proceed with caution. So much to unpack here. Vaccines being incredibly effective. When is anyone going to talk about how incredibly dangerous they are? It means that the NHS won't be overwhelmed. Well, they've got a 4.5 million backlog of operations and various other treatments that they simply won't be able to deal with now, if anyone even trusts them after this. And lockdowns reimposed has gone. Remember this one, everyone. If there is another lockdown, that will be your proof that these people are just paid puppets. Lamestream media. They do exactly as they're told and they don't question anything. Unless a new variant comes along. Well, again, they're setting us up for the Indian variant, which is apparently like a horror movie, according to one headline. Except there's no evidence that anything is going on in India. Or anything that we should be concerned with. But cases could still creep up. Now, Jordan and I came across a video this evening, actually. This is based in America, so it hasn't happened here yet.
Actually, I was going to say, do you think it would be better to pull that article up on stream?
Well, I can do. Yeah, okay. We'll save that for a stream. In fact, tune in on Friday and we'll play the video for you. Cases could still creep up. Local outbreaks. Need intervening on is amazing. That's an amazing little phrase there. That's not even English. The devolved nations are working to their own time frame for easing restrictions. And it goes on to talk about Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. I will say I genuinely don't want to go through the rest of this because this man is clearly a sheep. There you go. Nick Triggle. If that's your real name, I'm genuinely amazed.
Mr. Trigglypuff.
Seriously. There's a graph. There you go. UK daily reported deaths with coronavirus. See, it says daily reported. Not just deaths. Not just all the deaths. All the ones that are reported. Their very clever use of language is the reason why people are falling for their nonsense. People in hospital with coronavirus. With. Not because of. Oh, look, and the source is the gov.uk dashboard. Brilliant. So the same people are providing the information and backing up each other's information with more information that they are providing.
It'd be really interesting to find out how many people just have a coronavirus, regardless which sort it is. Just how many just have that alone? Not how many people have gone in for a heart operation and have then developed something. Just people who've been admitted with that as their only symptom, their only thing that's wrong. I'd be interested to know what the difference in the numbers are then.
You think they'll ever release those numbers?
No.
No. And just real quick, the last thing I want to say, 21st of June, this date keeps coming up a lot. And I would say keep an eye out for this date because something is going to happen on this date. A celebration, the end of something, the beginning of something. I've heard it be referred to as Juneteenth for some kind of diversity celebration. So keep an eye on that and we shall see. I think that's about it for this one. I hope you share our outrage, really, because this is quite ridiculous. They're still playing this game of do as we say, but we're going to put it on you if it all goes wrong. These people are genuinely evil. They do not care about you. They do not care about your welfare. It's all an act. These are actors. And this is a performance. And the cost is more than just a ticket to watch the show. So just be very cautious. Question everything. Question absolutely everything. If you have children, think about the circumstances, any other circumstances under which you would muzzle them like animals. If you have a family, be with your family. Take care of your family. These are going to be interesting times. This isn't over by a long shot. There is more to come. And we will keep talking about it and we will keep trying to reach as many people as possible and ask them to trust themselves, trust their gut, do their research, question everything.
That'd be a really interesting thing to find out from people. Just on average, what is your friends and family's opinion of this?
Unfortunately, I think the answer is going to be a lot of division within families.
I don't know if there will be. I think a lot of people, at the very least, do people on average think something isn't right? Doesn't matter what that something is, but on average, do people think something isn't right? I think yes.
But will they
I think a lot of people think something is up, but they don't know what.
But will they ever demonstrate that? Will they ever be brave enough to talk about it? Or will they just... Maybe people have looked at something and thought, well, that's not right. But when it's come time to maybe try and explain it to someone else, they've been shut down. You have to bear this in mind when you're talking to people.
Agreed.
Just be very kind of easy and gentle. And just, you could start that. That would be a fantastic icebreaker. Don't you think something's just a little bit off with everything that's going on?
Mm.
Just keep it generic. Let
them talk.
Yes. Just get it started and then let them go with it. And see what happens. Anyway, as always, this is Tuesday Tyranny. Thank you for joining us, if you have. We hope you have a very enjoyable Tuesday evening. We'll be back tomorrow with a live show. It's good night from me.
And good night from her.
Take care, everyone, and be safe. Talk to you
Bye for
soon.
now.